All right, so we are going to start with Chapter 11, which talks about the role of government in our economy. Section 11.1 talks about the government as regulator. And our objective for this section is to name 4 ways in which the government regulates business. So how does the government regulate business? Well, one of the government's roles is to foster economic success. It also tries to aid in the quality of life of its citizens. In a market economy, a country's economic health depends on businesses doing well. So in some cases, the government helps people so that they are not abused by businesses. And to fulfill these duties, local, state, and national governments pass laws to promote and regulate business. There are 3 levels of government: federal, state, and local. The federal government runs the country. State governments run their states, and local governments run counties, townships, cities, and towns. The federal government oversees interstate commerce. Interstate commerce is business that takes place between states, so a business that does business in Texas and California. State governments oversee intrastate commerce. Intrastate commerce is business that takes place within states, so a business that takes place only in Texas. Laws govern the workings of the economy. These laws regulate the production process and protect competition, business agreements, and creative properties. Companies that break the law can be fined, sued, or forced to close. And people can also face penalties as well. A monopoly occurs when a company controls an industry and is the only one to offer a product or service. An oligopoly occurs when a small number of companies control an industry. Monopolies are problematic for several reasons. One is that monopolies do not compete with other firms, so this enables them to charge any price they want for products or services. Also, quality may not be their biggest concern. And both monopolies and oligopolies limit choice in the marketplace. Companies can also form a monopoly by establishing a trust. And a trust is a group of companies that band together to form a monopoly and cut out the competition. The U.S. government passed antitrust laws to promote competition. Antitrust laws allows the federal government to break up monopolies, regulate them, or take control of them. These laws have not always stopped firms from competing unfairly. The government formed the Federal Trade Commission, the FTC, to enforce antitrust laws. For example, in the 1940s, the government sued a group of studios for trying to take over the film industry. The FTC also regulates interstate trade. It keeps the competition between U.S. businesses free and fair. Its job includes setting standards for honest advertising. One of the most basic ways government protects businesses is by enforcing contracts. So a contract is a legally enforceable agreement between 2 or more parties. It can be written, verbal, or even formed over a handshake. A rental agreement, a car repair order, or a warranty on a computer are examples of a contract. Also, when you apply for a job and you sign an employment contract. So a breach of contract occurs when one party fails to live up to the terms of the contract. It's easier to prove a breach of contract occurred if there's a written contract. So for example, suppose you're in a band that plays at a coffee house and the manager decides not to pay you. So unless you have a written contract, it's hard to prove that the manager said he was going to pay you. So word to the wise, make sure you get a written contract. So the laws also protect the right to own creative properties. Creative properties are items such as inventions and art that can be protected with a copyright, a patent, or a trademark. So a copyright gives artists the legal right to own their creations. Copyrights protect photographs, music, paintings, books, plays, and other written material. Today, a person creating an original work automatically holds the copyright to it. An artist who registers with the U.S. Copyright Office in Washington, D.C. gains additional legal protection. So if you own the copyright to a story you wrote, others who want to use it are going to have to get your permission beforehand. And a copyright usually lasts until about 70 years after the owner's death. A patent is a legal grant for the sole right to own an invention. The federal government grants the patents, and no one can copy a patented product or process without permission for 20 years after the inventor filed his or her application with the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office. Once the patent expires, then somebody else can copy that product or process. And lastly, a trademark is a name, a symbol, or a characteristic that identifies a product. It is also registered with the government. Only the owner of the trademark can legally use it. So some well-known trademarks would be like the Nike swoosh, or the catchphrase, "Just do it," or the Apple symbol on any Apple product that you have. All right, and lastly, we talk about regulating the production process. So the government also steers economic activity by regulating the production process. It tries to stop companies from polluting by enacting laws. Some laws limit the amount of waste that factories can discharge into the environment. Worker protection laws impose safety requirements and work procedures and regulate the minimum wage. So organized labor or labor unions also help to report violations of worker protection regulations. And then the Food and Drug Administration, the FDA, regulates the manufacture and sale of drugs in the United States. Local and state governments regulate production processes too. And when we talk about drugs, we're not talking about illegal drugs. These would be medications that you take for whether you buy it over the counter or with a prescription.